In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, God is one. Amen. Well, good morning, everybody. It's a very nice warm day today. Right at the moment, it's about, I don't know, in here, out there, about 17, 18 degrees, but it's going to rise up to the high 20s today, which would be a pleasant change from being frozen to the bone. It said on the radio this morning that it was not going to be very humid, but in fact it's quite humid, and the weather, the air is poor quality. It's full of pollen. So my hay fever is not too good, but not as bad as poor old Gabriel Demetrius yesterday, who's, it was strange because we went into the small chapel and he did not snuffle or sneeze or cough or anything at all. But as soon as he came out away from there, even into the main part of the church, he began to suffer again. So interesting the way that just a very small amount of air difference makes that sort of difference. Anyway, there we go. If you haven't seen his video, he's his normal charming self on it. He's a really lovely young man. So I recommend that you watch that. Okay, who do we have here? We've got Andrea, good morning, God bless you. David Healy, good morning, bless you. North of Inverness is windy and cool today. Your hay fever are ramping up. Well, to hope windy, cool, and also hay fever, that is a triple whammy, isn't it? You don't really mind so much that it's windy and cool, but no hay fever, or warm and sunny and hay fever, but to have the punishment without the benefit, oh my goodness. Good morning to Lisa August. I hope you're nice to see you there. Good morning, welcome, God bless you. You look to be a cat. There we are. I have my dog. He's just around the corner. You might be able to hear a gnashing and grinding going on before very long. It's not his teeth, but he's chewing on a very large bone and enjoying it very much. He seems to be demolishing it quite quickly. It's an enormous bone, about this sort of big. It's a great big, it's the knuckle bone, I think. It might even be the femur bone of what looks to be a young heifer. Certainly the bones are not fused together yet, so the poor animal was still quite young when it was slaughtered. There we are. Good morning, Penelope. Hope all is well with you as well. So let's get cracking. We'll begin by reading Acts 27, verses 39 to 44. And that takes us to the end of this penultimate chapter of Acts of the Apostles. On one occasion, I was walking in Oxford. It was evening, and I was heading towards Christchurch. I was about 22 at the time, so 44 years ago. And these two Oxford clergymen, professors, were walking one next to the other. Both of them were quite well-known theologians. One was John Macquarie, and I can't remember who the other one was for a moment, but it'll come to me. And the other was saying to the first one, Macquarie, I only overheard this last little bit, and 27thly and penultimately, and as I dropped back, I said to myself, fancy being able to keep 29 arguments in your head in order and walk at the same time. Anyway, they seem to be able to, so good for them. Their gowns flapping in the breeze. It was also a beautiful day. Remember that much? It was early summer. Wonderful, beautiful day. Towards the end of the stay that I had in Oxford itself before I went back out to Cuddesdon. Okay. 27thly and penultimately. What were we meant to be doing? Not that, anyway. Chapter 27, verse 39 to the end. When it was day, they did not recognize the land, but they observed a bay with a beach on to which they planned to run the ship if possible. And they let go the anchors and left them in the sea. Meanwhile, loosing the rudder ropes, and they hoisted the mainsail to the wind and made for shore. But striking a place where two seas met, they ran the ship aground, and the prow stuck fast and remained immovable. But the stern was being broken up by the violence of the waves. And the soldiers' plan was to kill the prisoners, lest any of them should swim away and escape. But the centurion, wanting to save Paul, kept them from their purpose and commanded that those who could swim should jump overboard first and get to the land, and the rest, some on boards and some on parts of the ship, and so it was that they all escaped safely to land. Okay, good morning, Miss Connie. Verse 39 then. And when it was day, they did not recognize the land, but they observed a bay with a beach onto which they planned to run the ship if possible. Well, I looked it up. So this is happening in late October, maybe the beginning of November. You can tell from the internet roughly what time the sun came up and it became daylight. It starts coming up in October in Malta, in northern Malta, at 7 o'clock in the morning. So we're talking here about somewhere between 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning in late October. It's cold in the Mediterranean at that time of year. We know that it's blowing a hoolie and there are huge waves and other things going on. Dreadful weather, absolutely terrible. And through this horrible weather and ghastliness, they can see land, they can see a bay some distance off. They can see also that it's got a smooth, sandy beach. The word actually used in the Greek means that, a smooth, sandy beach on which to land. They're hoping to take this shallow-keeled boat to that beach and run it around, hopefully, upon the beach itself. That was not so unusual in those days. They would quite often haul a boat ashore, a ship ashore, and to scrape off barnacles and to get rid of planks that were full of worms. All sorts of sea creatures live in boards, and to put tar on the bottom of it, all that sort of thing. They did that right the way up until Victorian times. There's a problem with wooden boats. So that's what they're hoping to do. And verse 40, and they let go of the anchors and left them in the sea, meanwhile loosing the rudder ropes, and they hoisted the mainsail to the wind and made for shore. Well, quite a lot of that verse is conjecture. Because so many of the words and so many of the phrases could have other meanings in them as well. So they've done quite a good job here, but there are other ways you can also translate that. And if you go back into other translations, you'll find that that is the case. So we'll have a go. They cut the sea anchors almost certainly to begin with. The ordinary anchors would not have reached down into the ground, so they don't want those. They cut the sea anchors, which are cruciform pieces of wood or metal with tarpaulin stretched between them. You shove those into the sea and they slow the boat down. That is not what they want to happen anymore. They want to go as fast as they possibly can so they can ram the shore and go up as high the shore as they can possibly make it. So they cut those off and they leave those in the sea. They would have been quite valuable. And in the Greek it says one of two things here. They are swallowed up by the sea. So the sea anchors are just left to be swallowed up by the sea itself. The alternative way of reading that, though, is that they, that is not the sea anchors, but the sailors, the soldiers, and the crew and the passengers, gave themselves, committed themselves to the sea. So it just says they committed themselves to the sea. anchors or themselves. We can't tell. And it's one of those cases where you pay your money, you take a pick, and some translations say the one and some translations say the other. It's not clear. And it's not clear in Greek either. But never mind. The point of all this, and they then loosen the rudder ropes. So they no longer have the rudder. They're not using that anymore. Or rudders. In the Greek it says rudders. This is very unusual for a boat of that type at that time. They should have two rudder oars. These are oars that went down into the sea on the side and were steered by turning and pushing the rudder in different directions. It's possible they had one on either side, or it's possible they had dual control of the rudder. We don't know. It's unusual, not impossible, or it could just be a mistake from St. Luke, just a grammatical mistake. Anyway, whichever way around, having rudders in the plural in the Greek is well attestified in all the manuscripts, so we need to keep that word rudders there. So the word for rudder is pendalion, and I don't know if you've come across something called the pendalion. The pendalion, or the rudder, is a big, thick book in which are written all the canons of the church. And it is using these canons that we then, we use those canons, the rudder, to steer the ship of the church. Okay? There we go. So the rudder and the sail and the anchors are the things that all three of them together control the ship. And two of the three of these things are now put out of commission. They cannot go back on this decision now. They are rudderless and they are anchorless, and there's nothing more they can do about that. What they do though, is they hoist some sort of sail. It says here the mainsail to the wind. Actually, there is no guarantee it's the mainsail. In the Greek, it just says sail, and different church fathers reckon on a different type of sail, a bigger or smaller one. Given that there is a huge, terrible wind going on, I think it's very unlikely, and many of the church fathers and others think it's very unlikely, that it was in fact the mainsail, more likely to be the mizzen sail, their hoist at the front of the ship, which then catches the front of the ship and will pull the front of the ship forwards, going towards this beach. So it's much more likely they'll be doing that. Good morning to Ahmed and to Gabriel. If you want to see more about Gabriel, there's a nice little video from last night, which has got quite a large number of people looking at it already, and many people liking it, which is not surprising. So they hoist the sail, and they're driven as fast as they can towards the shore. Okay? Having given up all hope of trying now to control the ship at all. Verse 41, but striking a place where two seas met, they ran the ship aground, and the prow stuck fast and remained immovable, but the stern was being broken up by the violence of the waves. So they still had this terrible, violent storm going on, and they struck some sort of thing. What sort of thing? Well, you know what? We don't really know. Again, the Greek is ambiguous. There are lots of good words for shoal or sandbank or currents or rocky reef and so on. And St. Luke uses none of those words, possibly because he didn't know them. After all, he wasn't a sailor. But I have a feeling, though, that had this happened to me, I'd have said to the sailors, what happened back there? And they said, in a good Cornish accent, whoa, we run a great with you. something like that, and then you just write that down. And maybe he's just done something along those lines. So we're not sure what it is. They have hit some sort of place. A sandbank. In the Greek, it says the place of cross currents or place of two seas. And it sounds as if this is where two currents hit each other. Well, there are places like that in Malta, especially during the winter, where you have, I'm sorry, David, I will have to look it up because I didn't write it down and I can't remember immediately what it is. But it gives the idea of two things actually hitting each other. Now, if they did do that, then the sand actually drops just there. Especially in the wintertime, you'd have lots of rain coming off the hills around that area. It's a very rocky, craggy, hilly place, Malta, running down and going directly into the sea. And you get these cross currents where two seas meet or two currents meet. And where that happens, you get a dead space. It's a very frightening sort of place for sailors to be in. Maybe a shoal. It's not certain from the Greek. Now, because of this, I thought maybe Google Earth will help us. So I looked up Google Earth, and you can do the same. It's great fun looking at Google Earth. You can travel all over the world from the comfort of your armchair without any problem of getting diarrhea or eating food that is not to your taste, and walk down narrow streets and all the rest of it and enjoy yourself a completely hassle-free holiday, an hour or two, without being bugged by folk wanting to sell you cheap trinkets or other waiters wanting to entice you into their restaurants to eat more food than you really wish to eat, and so it goes on. And on this occasion, earlier on this morning, I looked up Malta and went with Google Earth around the outside until I discovered St. Paul's Bay. And there is St. Paul's Shipwreck Church in St. Paul's Bay. And if you look in the sea outside there, there's a mouth that looks a bit like a crocodile's mouth opened. There's a northern beach, there's a southern beach. There's some islands up the top here. I'm drawing it backwards for your sake, where you can see there's an island called St. Paul's Island, on which there is a large and impressive statue of St. Paul, which unhelpfully looks nothing at all like his icon. So if you want to look it up, it is Bugiba Beach, which is just a wonderful name. And because of Bugiba Beach, I thought I'd use Bugalug's mug today. Bugiba Beach. Bugibba Beach. If you go from St. Paul's, the north side of that area, that opening, to the south side, about a third of the way across, there is marked on the map St. Paul's Shoal, around which and on which is now a fish farm, which might have been very helpful at the time. If you look around that area, starting at St. Paul's Island and going all the way around, St. Paul's Island is pretty inhospitable, but the rest of that opening either has rugged shore or sandy beaches all the way around, and lots of rocky outcrops in the water and around. I immediately thought this would be a wonderful place to go snorkeling. I used to do a lot of that in my youth, between the ages of about 18 and 25. Then came to live in Englistan for a time, and it's too darn cold to do that sort of nonsense. So I stopped it then. Very rugged all around, so occasional sandy beaches, one of which they might have spotted. The rest of the beaches, I have to say, look pretty inhospitable for running a boat aground upon. But who's to know, 2,000 years ago, they might have been quite different. Let us say they got caught on St. Paul's Shoal. Depressingly, it is between 600 and 800 meters off the nearest shore. So you still have an awful long way to swim, or an awful long way to paddle, doggy paddle on your bit of boat that has been smashed up. So this is not going to be the nicest bit of your life. And of course, they don't have recourse to the Royal Lifeboat Institution. Which is unfortunate. Anyway, there we go. So, verse 41, broken up by the violence of the storms. Striking a place the two seas met, ran the ship aground. The prow struck fast, remained immovable. The stern was being broken up by the violence of the waves. So now, everything they might want to cling to, with the exception of the odd plank or their own swimming skills, is now lost. And there's, I think, meant to be, in St. Luke's mind, a warning about this, that everything man-made and all human plans have come to naught. So first of all, they decide to leave fair havens, where they would have lost the ship. They might have been able to take the ship somewhere nearby, or just secure it against the weather. But they take no notice of St. Paul, and they set off in what looked to be fair weather, and 2 weeks later, they arrive in Malta, having lost everything except for their lives. So obedience to the church is not a bad idea to begin with. Secondly, all human ways of saving their lives have come to naught. The sea, the waves, everything organized by Satan has been thrown against them and has been successful. They have hungered and thirsted. They, even now, the ship on which they're on, between them and drowning, is smashed to pieces. So it is awful and dreadful, but the whole idea is, okay, this is what happens when you don't follow the church. You end up in a terrible mess. And now all they have to hope in is God, the grace of God. And even there, they're going to have to struggle like mad in order to get from the relative safety, but in the end, completely perilous deck of the ship to the absolute safety of the ground, of the shore in Malta. And the only way of doing that is by hurling themselves into the sea, with or without bits of planking. And you can see what a terrifying thought that is. They have to take themselves into something that looks even more dangerous. Give themselves absolutely up to the waves and everything else. Lose all control and self-determination, and have to rely absolutely now upon God. So a terrifying thing. They can no longer rely on anything earthly at all. Now, in our own lives, we might not experience or realize the severity of the storm, the spiritual storm that goes around us all the time, because Satan uses all sorts of blandishments to find a way to drag us away from Christ. And so the storm might appear to be a fair wind, bringing us somewhere. And certainly for most people, if they are already completely fleshly, their life is very peaceful and easy because they give in to Satan the entire time. So they have no spiritual warfare because they already belong to him. But those that are trying absolutely to follow Christ will find themselves in the middle of a spiritual storm that goes on and on. And here we need to give ourselves absolutely, trustingly to God, and even throw ourselves into the waves, as it were, to allow God to bring us safely to his shore, having had everything we trusted in smashed to bits. Okay, verse 42. And the soldiers' plan was to kill the prisoners, lest any of them should swim away and escape. But the centurion, wanting to save Paul, kept them from their purpose and commanded that those who could swim should jump overboard first and get to land, and the rest, some on boards and some on parts of the ship. And so it was, they all escaped safely to land. So, why did the soldiers want to kill the prisoners? Well, you remember much earlier in Ephesus, wasn't it, where the jailer discovered the prisoners had escaped, although none of them had escaped, decided to kill himself rather than be put to the torture that he otherwise would have been given for allowing prisoners to escape. So it was easier and better for the soldiers to kill the prisoners, both those who are innocent and guilty alike, rather than risk having themselves being put to the sword. So presumably the centurion Julius decided that he would risk his own neck and take responsibility for the prisoners in order to save St. Paul. I think that St. Paul has obviously made friends with Julius, and Julius likes him and can't see any reason why he should be taken prisoner at all. So he wants to save this person who's now become his friend. The fact that we know Julius's name quite possibly also means that Julius later on became a Christian as well. Okay? So Satan again now tries through the soldiers to get rid of St. Paul, but he's now St. Paul is saved by the centurion. And verses 43 to 44, I think we read that. The rest, after some boards and parts of the ship, and so it was, they all escaped safely to land. There are going to be more horrors still to come. Poor old St. Paul. But by swimming or on planks, finally they get to shore. So the flotsam from this shipwreck, the remains of their old life, are transformed from something that's keeping them from the shore into something that enables them to get to the shore. We very frequently find, also with our own sin, that it's something like that. The glories of our own sin, when broken up and broken down, can be transformed into something that actually becomes life-saving. To other people, the appearance of uselessness, but actually when we look back, we discover these are the salvific parts of our own life. I remember C.S. Lewis in The Great Divide, talks about a miserable monster on somebody's shoulder. But this miserable monster in heaven is turned into a beautiful white horse. And the miserable monster was actually the corrupted, the sin, which was a corrupted, beautiful thing. And very often, we hang on to the corruption which other people admire, rather than giving that up, and then using the same gifts that allowed us to become corrupt. And those are the things that actually made us renewed and brought us up towards Christ. So we allow our own ship, our own person, possibly, to be smashed to pieces so that the Lord can then regenerate us in his own image. Okay, let's see if people have been saying anything. I think that the last person was Penelope, who says that her eldest grandson is Gabriel. Well, that's very good. And David, I can't tell you. I could look it up. I can write it down there if you like. If you look it up on in your Bibles, you might be able to see there. If you get a interlinear or something, you'll see the problem with the translation. Miss Connie says, I love Google Earth. I have had a walk around the area of your church, Father. Yeah, Bageba Beach. I think it's fantastic. I quite like to go to Bageba Beach just so I can send all my friends postcards from such an unlikely place. They'd be mighty surprised. I just simply don't send postcards when I'm away, except to one of my aunts. I remember sending her a postcard from southern Spain where I was staying, and I walked off I'd been up into the hills, came across this little shop that sold beautiful postcards to this beautiful village, and I chose a postcard of a shop front that had these lovely earthenware pots with a rounded base on the bottom of them, a whole heap of them, very beautiful colours and everything else, a sort of light ochre coloured shop and then a blue one next to it and so on. Very pretty indeed. And I sent this to my aunt. And when I got home, to my surprise, when I got through the front door, I discovered that the card I had sent to my aunt was sitting on my front mat. I thought, what an idiot. I had sent it to my Aunt Diane at my own address. And I picked it up and turned it over. But no, it was my Aunt Diane who had sent exactly the same card from exactly the same village to me. Curiously enough, on exactly the same day. So my aunt and I, who I love very much indeed, she's a wonderful person. I must actually ring her up. A wonderful person, had seen this card and thought, oh, Philip would like that. And I had seen the card and thought, oh, Aunt Diana would like that. And I wish I'd seen her. It would have been great to have had time with her there. Isn't that crazy? There we go. Right, so we're leaving St. Paul, gasping and wet and cold and probably miserable, but thankful that he's still alive, on the northeastern coast of Malta. Soaked to the skin, having floated possibly as much as 800 meters in a storm towards land. Somewhat reminiscent of that story about the Roman Catholic saint, isn't it? What's her name? Saint Teresa of Avila, who was traveling by cart in the winter from one place to another, and the wheel came off the cart. And she was tipped over the side of the cart and landed up in a ditch full of icy water. And the carter, as he pulled her out of the ditch, heard her say, well, Lord, if that's how you treat your friends, no wonder you have so few of them. There we go. So, of your mercy, please pray for Jane and for Hilary, who have cancer. Please pray for Peter and Virginie, also have cancer. Please pray for Hector, Nicoletta, and for Joseph and Simon, who have ongoing health problems. For Carol, and also for Daniel, who is still making a recovery. We pray for Auburn and for David, both of whom also have very serious cancer, and whether or not treatment is going to help, I don't know. But Auburn has gone to a hospice now, but he's still around. So please pray for them. No matter how much we pray and how brave we are, facing illness and death in this way is always a courageous thing to do. We mustn't hang on to life without, because we have no hope, because we do have hope, and the hope is that in the resurrection, of course. I've just seen something else pop up. It is David who says, by destruction of the old man, we are rebuilt and saved and transformed. Quite right. Fit says, I don't know who Fit is. Hello, Philip. Are there new online courses to learn from you? No. although I have asked Gabriel, that's Richie, or Richie, to think about, I will also ask Athanasius, maybe they can both work on different ones, to start editing these 10 at 10s so we get rid of all the guff that I talk, like St. Teresa, and just have the Bible study parts in. So there's probably only about 10 minutes valuable stuff in all of this, and I've been rabbiting on now for 36 minutes. So that's that. And I am beginning to think that I will get maybe Athanasius and Gabriel together to help me to put together a catechumenate online course. These things are always better when they're live and there are people actually there with you. But if they're not live, and you can't actually get to one, then there are people, for instance, there's somebody in Peterborough who's wanting to do a catechumenate course with me. But then take that a bit further and begin to do some other theological courses as well. I do actually teach on a theological course in Warsaw run by the Greek Archdiocese. And that is well worth doing. It's the Thyatira School. Maybe I ought to advertise that to you. And there's also online, if you look up eQuip, that's E-Quip, on the Antiochian British Isles website, you'll find that there is an online course of 3 years worth, for which you can write and have essays marked. And that is also very good. Okay. Let's have a look. There's other people are saying things. David says, the guff is a melodic accompaniment to the scripture, Father. It's a blessing. Well, that's a blessing to me to know. Sometimes I say to myself, Ross, what have I been going on about? There you go. Okay, so I hope that helps you, Fit. Yep. Naughty Gabriel, he's been promising to do it for ages. Oh, I'm not quite sure which one, either eQuip or the editing. Either the editing you only said you do yesterday, the eQuip you said ages ago. Some people, honestly. Anyway, there you go. All right, your prayers for me and for each other. Well, both, he says. Prayers for me and each other. And God bless you and keep you. God willing, we shall have this again tomorrow. I'll tell you what, Fit, there are some really good things. I don't know what level you're at, but if you get onto the internet, onto YouTube, and look up absolutely anything at all you like from the mouth and brain and heart, and it's largely heart, though she's very clever, of Frederica Matthews Green. Okay? There's a wonderful series of things she calls something like Introduction to the Orthodox Church that she did. Very short little snippets, beautifully put together, wonderfully edited. Her teaching style is perfect. She's the wife of a priest, or rather her husband is a priest. And she's a fantastically good teacher. Her books are wonderful. I think I've got all the books that she's written now. And they're just wonderful, really wonderful, beautifully written, lovely, clear script, beautiful English. Sometimes when people split infinitives or have ridiculously long words when a short word would do, I just throw the book away. But her writing is fluid and immediate, and her teaching style is extremely good. She's able to express complex ideas in very simple terms. I love it. I love her. So one of the books that she's written is called Welcome to the Orthodox Church. A certain Gabriel of my acquaintance has had this book now for ages. But it's an excellent book. I really recommend it to you. £12 something, £12.50. You can buy it on Amazon, worth every penny. Really, really get. And Frederica's internet stuff is equally fluid, equally beautiful. She's done some lovely things about the cross, about the Theotokos, and so on, all of which are excellent. So I really recommend her work to you. The other things as well on the internet, some are good, some are excellent, some are rotten. Father Paul Schudenbach, there are certain things he's done there that are absolutely knock my socks off. They are so beautifully done. There's a particularly good one. I can't remember who. It's called something like Half Hour Coffee Hour with a Protestant or something. And this guy who is a Protestant goes to visit Father Paul. Yeah, he's just superb. And they talk in a very respectful way to each other. And the Protestant is really trying to find out what Father Paul is thinking and talking about. It's brilliant. Normally he only goes to see somebody once, but he goes to see Father Paul 3 times and comes to see a service, and he has a tour of the church and so on. It's quite brilliant, really brilliant. And you will find that you'll get a wonderful amount of stuff within that very short area. Orthodox Way and the Orthodox Church by Bishop Callistos or Timothy Ware, same person. Again, absolutely wonderful. Written much more in an academic style, but maybe sort of A-level style. Again, a wonderful teacher. A lot of his works are now available in print, and you can watch various things online as well. On YouTube, various talks that he gave, and you'll then get the timbre of his voice and the way he spoke. And then you'll find that his books are written in the same way as he spoke. And it's a wonderful way of doing that as well. Okay? Maybe I'll put some links underneath here for things I think you might like to watch and do. Okay? Enough. I must get off. I've got things I must get on with as well as this, and go home because George is busy looking at the bees this morning. So I'd like to go there as well. People saying all sorts of things. Okay, I'll try and do that now. Okay, God bless you and keep you. Amen. LC, good morning. Bishop Callis' voice so distinctive, love to talk and pray of the heart. Yes, the only trouble was his voice was very soporific. And although it was great what he was saying, I'd always find myself beginning to think, oh, not long till lunch. Or worse of all, that was a nice lunch. Before very long, I am sound asleep. Right, bye-bye everybody. Do what I can for you fit. Okay, God bless you all.